Welcome to Craft Chat Chronicles, the go-to podcast for tips on crafting best-selling fiction. Here at Craft Chat Chronicles, we bring you expert interviews, insights, and tips on writing, publishing, and marketing. Join the conversation and embark on a new chapter in your writing journey. For workshops, show notes, and more information, visit jdmyall.com. That's jdmyall.com.
In Season 3, Episode 8 of Craft Chat Chronicles, author Ariel Vinson talks about being selected for Reese Witherspoon's Lit Up Fellowship. She talks about her publishing journey, which includes her first novel, her debut novel, being sold at auction. She talks about writing in verse and all the excitement and the challenges that she's faced in her career so far. It's a great conversation, so I hope you stick around for it. Let's get chatty. Season 3, Episode 8 of Craft Chat.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Doing good. You are a beast at spoken word.
Oh, thank you.
I was watching that link on YouTube.
Oh my God. That's so old. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
Were you nervous the first time you got up on stage?
Oh yes. Yeah. I don't want to say I have stage fright, but I have to have a whole kind of routine before I get up on stage. I have to breathe. I have to kind of look over the material, really just have some quiet time, not touch my phone. You know, I know a lot of people, before you go up on stage, they're ready to text you and be like, hey, where should I sit? Hey, where should I park? Hey, whatever. I can't do that. That's not for me. It just freaks me out. So I often get really nervous. And I feel like when I get up there, especially if I've memorized the work, I kind of black out. And then when it's done, I'm like, whew. Okay. I did it.
That's cool. What was your life like before books?
Ooh. I studied journalism in undergrad. And back then I never really thought that I would do creative writing. I mean, like my freshman year of college, I took a creative writing class, and it was both poetry and fiction. So that was when I was really introduced to the short story and like poetry that wasn't the same kind of, Walt Whitman that we were learning in high school, and middle school. So I really took a liking to it. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe I'll minor in creative writing. But I was like, that's a lot of writing, journalism, creative writing. Where's the balance? And I also wanted to take a more, I guess, practical approach. And I was like, well, if I have 2 writing majors, writing does not pay that well most times. So maybe I should do something else. So I started minoring in business. I was terrible at that. So then I changed it to apparel merchandising, which is basically the business of fashion. Never did anything with it, but I do think it taught me kind of what I know about marketing, about business, returns on investment. Things that I don't use that much anymore, but they are helpful when I think about ideas for my own book. Like, okay, I want to post this thing. What will this do? Is there a call to action? Is there this or that? So my life before books was still writing. I did journalism internships at newspapers. I interview people, calling their phones, calling sources, finding the story, doing like breaking news for Indianapolis for some of my internships. But I don't know, I just always wanted a more creative bent, because the thing about journalism is you find the story, you don't particularly create it. You can shape it in a certain way, but you can't just come up with something and come up with some characters and say what it is you want to say unless you have the people to back it up.
That's true. Unless you're a politician.
Right. That you can just say anything. And people.
So was there a particular internship that you found the most impactful of the ones you did?
I think the one that turned me, I guess, to creative writing the most was my last internship in journalism. It was through a program that basically was promoting diversity in the newsroom. And they brought us out to New York. I was in New York for maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It was my
Do you
first.
remember the name of the program?
Oh, it was they've changed the name now, but I will chat it because I think it's the Knight CUNY J Fellowship, something like that. But CUNY J was the name of the media school, the media graduate school back then.
Okay.
But so that is what I remember.
Mhm.
But we were all interns. And so every Monday, like, so we would have a Tuesday through Friday, we would go to an actual newsroom, but every Monday, the entire cohort would meet to learn the foundations of journalism, to learn about producing, making videos, interviewing, etc. And one day we had a man on the street interview, which is kind of what it sounds like. You have to go outside and uh, interview people. And in New York, nobody wants to stop for you. And I didn't know that back then. So I'm like trying to stop all these people. They're not. And it was like, it was a political question. I can't remember exactly what it was. But I was just so intimidated. But I was also like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to chase the sources and chase the stories unless I'm really passionate about it. And so that being in New York gave me the chance to go to New Eurekan Poets Cafe for the first time, and connect with writers who also love writing just for writing's sake, not for journalist's sake. And that's what changed. So after that summer, and that was the summer of 2016, after that summer, I took another like fiction workshop, and I was like, I'm applying for grad school and for an MFA because I don't want to graduate and work in a newsroom. So like, I loved the internships. I loved what they taught me. I think journalism skills are invaluable, but it wasn't for me.
Mhm. You mentioned your MFA. How was your MFA program?
It was great. It was 2 years. It was also too expensive, but I wasn't, because I hadn't taken out loans in undergrad. I was, I guess, okay with taking out loans for a graduate program. Looking back, I don't know that that was the best financial decision, but I do think that it was worth it. It was a mostly white program, like most MFAs are. And I was studying fiction, which is interesting because I mostly write poetry. Um, I took a lot of poetry classes though, both craft and workshop classes. So we were flexible. Sarah Lawrence was flexible in that way. But it was great. I met some lifelong friends. I really, I think, don't know what my writing would look like without the MFA. And that's not to say that you need one, but I certainly did. So, and because I was in New York State, I was able to like try so much and volunteer at these different places and try this, and really learn more about the publishing industry because I knew nothing back then. So, um, I think it was a great experience. I wrote very widely, and I really miss having dedicated writing time and just dedicated space where I can talk to writers almost every day about writing.
That's true. In an MFA program, they read your work and they
Right.
critique. So you have that
It's
network that's really nice.
Yeah, it's a built-in network, and you just get to show up. I mean, after you fade, you get to show up and engage with writers who you also really believe in. And then the professors were great. I think with that, like, there was a professor who always had a prompt, and they had so many restraints, and they were so strange. But it really tested my abilities. And then I had, thankfully, like, my thesis advisor was Black, and she's a Black woman. So she was really able to connect with my thesis, which is like my debut novel now. But she was able to connect with it and tell me who to read and what to read and kind of guide me through that manuscript. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I would trade the money, but I wouldn't trade the experience.
Was the novel or poetry that you worked on in your MFA program what your debut novel is?
For the most part, so back then my thesis was fiction, but it was, I guess, what this novel used to be. So it was fiction and it was in prose. It was not a novel in verse like it is now. But the setting was the same and some of the characters were the same. So it was still set at a skating rink. There was still a romance, and there was still at least a threat of the skating rink closing. And so back then I was struggling with, okay, does it close before the book even starts? Does it close, like, where in the book does it close because of gentrification? And then what happens after that? So back then it was still a story about Jalen finding her voice, but she was finding it in a different way. It was more of a kind of not protest novel, but it was more of a novel of resistance. And I don't think it's that anymore. She just resists in a different way, in a quieter way, which I think is also important. But yeah, so I at least wrote the beginning of that novel, I think like the first 100 something pages for my thesis. It's so different now, but that was the start.
What made you switch to verse?
It was not giving, JD. It was not giving. So the prose just felt a little stuffy. And I'm like, I'm at a skating rink, like I want it to flow. I want it to feel fun. I want the words to kind of bounce around the page. And I couldn't really do that with prose. So I had an internship. There's always an internship story. I had an internship at Hachette the summer between my first and second year. And I didn't want to lug my laptop because they, of course, like had a computer for me. So I didn't want to lug my laptop on. I think I had to take, just one train. I didn't want to lug my laptop on the train every single day, especially because I used to like to do stuff after work. So I don't want to be carrying around a big old laptop. So I would take a journal. I was like this little. I would take a journal and I would just write the novel like that. But it kept coming out in verse. And I was like, okay, I'll go with this for now, but like when I go type it up, it needs to be in prose. And so that included me like adding so many details that like I wouldn't in a novel in verse. But that's just how it kept coming out. And I was like, okay, well, I'm getting a fiction degree, so I do have to make this prose probably. I really don't feel like figuring out the mechanisms of what I need to submit for a novel in verse. Because the poetry requirements for that degree versus the fiction requirements were a lot different as far as page count was concerned. So I was like, you know what? We're going to keep it as it is, but we're going to return to the prose. Return to the verse. And then after I graduated, I went to Kim Billio, and it was still in prose back then. But I still felt like I want this to be in verse. Like it's missing something. It's missing some music, and it's missing the flow that I had when I was writing it in verse. So I changed it.
Hi, my name is Kaya Freites, and I'm currently in the studio recording Heart's Gambit by J.D. Mayall. Chapter 1, Emma Baldwin. Harlem, 1943. When the moonlight hits the circus tents, they bleed. Ruby drops turn to rose petals before raining down on the audience. A symbol. That's all anybody wants. Something that feels bigger than them. No matter the city, no matter the time. Ma always said this when we were fortifying the fabric together, using our hands to imbue the crimson silk with our gifts. Something magical. Something beautiful. And if we remind them that we're the best black circus on the circuit in the process, what's the harm? Oohs and ahs ripple as the crowd begins to file into the big top. They settle in their seats and prepare for the show as that bloody rain begins. Find Heart's Gambit wherever you get your audiobooks.
What are the unique challenges of telling a full narrative in verse? And how do you overcome them? I imagine it's a lot because you're saying a lot, you're putting a lot of emotional impact, but in a lot less space. How do you navigate that?
It's really difficult. And I for some reason keep torturing myself. I I navigate it in a few ways. First, I just write and I let the free verse flow. I've learned that I just need to write it and then I can go back and think more about form and think more about space and think more about white space. But as far as details are concerned, that's, I think, the hardest part, because I'm like, well, it would feel weird to throw a description of the protagonist in this scene, but they need to know what she looks like. It would feel weird to know that, there's all these people around these two characters. Where do I put that? So I have a lot of trouble figuring out how to squeeze in details about setting or about, just what somebody looks like, because I feel like it clunks up the poem. So, in a poem that wasn't in a novel in verse, you don't have to describe what anything looks or what anyone looks like. So I'm still kind of training myself to figure out how to add those details in beautiful lyrical ways. I don't know that I quite have it yet, but I'm trying my best. And I think also uh, the biggest challenge is making sure it does sound lyrical, because I don't want to write a novel in verse that somebody reads and they're like, that could have been in prose. There was nothing different about that. Just because the lines were broken doesn't mean that this was a novel in verse. So that's one of my biggest fears. So I go through it a lot and I try to go line by line and say, okay, how is the word choice here? What does the sentence feel like? Is there something I can add to this poem to make it really feel like a poem? Is the emotional impact enough? Does this poem even need to be here? So it's a lot of constructing and deconstructing and moving things around.
Any advice for new writers on how to write in verse? Any?
I think the advice I got from Candace Elo was to just write the poems and then figure out how they fit into a story. I'm kind of trying to do that. So for the second book that I'm writing, because I got a 2-book deal, I'm letting myself write whatever scene, right. I'm letting myself write whatever scene I feel passionate about in that moment. And then just random scenes, because I do try to outline to lessen the amount of time that I'm spending trying to figure out what's happening next in the narrative. But I think the joy of writing a novel in verse is these are supposed to be, or should be, can be standalone poems. And so with that, how do I weave together a narrative? And usually you can do that by just writing these poems, thinking of your characters, writing some poems. Not all of them are going to make it, but I think that's the fun in writing a novel in verse. And even if you are writing in a linear way, you can order those poems to be linear. But I think a novel in verse may give you the opportunity to write in a nonlinear way, and that maybe will help you get the novel done faster.
Love that. Love that. You were saying that there's like formatting and structural and page and everything different in verse. What are the normal conventions in verse? Right.
So I think with a novel in verse, my favorite part of it is you can either choose free verse, which is just, the page looks like whatever you want it to look like, and it's more based on rhythm, or you can choose a form. So in some of the poems, I'm like, okay, this is like an ode. I might not call it an ode on the page, but this is an ode to the skating rink. Or this is, an elegy, or I'm trying my best at a sonnet because I really cannot get a poem in 14 lines. But, so I think in The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, when I read it, I'm also looking at how her stanzas look. Some of her poems, it's just 3 lines each stanza. Some of her poems, they cascade down the page. And so it's like when you write a novel in verse, you're also thinking about what you want it to look like and why it should look that way. So there's like an extra consideration there when you're writing or when you're revising. It's like, okay, what do I want this page to get across? Should I play with form here? Do I want it simple? Do I want it small and tight? And that is also, that's difficult, but I think that's the fun in writing a novel in verse.
Love that. Love that. So tell me about Lit Up and that experience.
Yeah. So I originally wasn't going to apply for Lit Up. I just felt like my manuscript wasn't ready. And I was like, I don't know. Like I seen it and I was like, okay, maybe next time. And then my thesis advisor emailed the link to me and I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And then the MFA
Question.
Yes.
Did your thesis professor, when they sent you the link, know that you were considering the Reese Witherspoon Lit Up program or no? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
okay.
She's like, you
so that's like God and the cosmos all leading you in that direction.
Everything was leading me in that direction. And so I saw the application and I was like, no, I don't think I told anybody that I seen it. And then my thesis advisor emailed it to me and I was like, thanks for sharing, I'll think about it. I don't know if my manuscript is ready. And then she wasn't the MFA director then, but she is now. I can't remember I think she was the assistant director. She emailed it to me. And I was like, nah, I don't know. And then I think one more person sent it to me and I was like, you know what? I should just apply. Clearly, I should just apply. So I applied and I got it. And that experience was so strange. It was good, but it was strange because we were the first cohort and we weren't able to meet in person. So our retreat was virtual because of the pandemic. So I still have not met some of the folks in my cohort, but we had a really long, fulfilling virtual retreat. They also gave us some money to go get a hotel or Airbnb so we could, feel like we were in a place where we could really engage. But so we were on Zoom all weekend and I'm sitting in there with my camera and my wig off because I need to relax. I need to relax and I need to listen and take notes without anyone looking at me. But it was just a great, really informative weekend. And we also got to meet with our mentors virtually. And from there, we were, given a list of agents that were open to Lit Up queries, and we were supposed to query. I say supposed to because I didn't query until way later that year because I wasn't ready. Like the manuscript had a lot to fix and I wasn't ready. Frankly, I'm like, I think I might have waited an entire year. I can't remember. But I did wait. But so during Lit Up, you also, before you query, you get to talk to, I think, you get to talk to one agent from their list of folks who are interested in Lit Up submissions. And they had my dream agent on there, Jody Reamer. So I was like, you know what, let me just, I can get on the phone with her. I might, even if she doesn't want to represent me, I can learn a lot from her. So we had such a great conversation. I'm taking all these notes and she's like, yeah, look out for this. Think about this when you're talking to an agent, think about this. And she was, at the end of the call, she was like, if you want to submit to me, here's what the subject line should be. My assistant will put it at the top of my pile. And I was like, oh my gosh. So once I finally queried, she read it. Her assistant read it. They loved it. She offered representation. But I think I don't know. I don't want to say that if I hadn't done Lit Up, that wouldn't have happened, but it definitely probably would have been harder to get an agent like Jody Reamer. So it's been a great experience. And I think because our publication in my cohort is so spread out, we got to see the first experience of a lit up author with Chatham. And then now it's my turn. So now all of the lit up we have a Slack where we kind of just chit chat here and there, introduce ourselves. I think at this point there have been 3 cohorts. So some of us are all coming out in 2025. So that's been nice.
That's exciting. So how did your submission process go?
It went really well. Submission as in like my querying, or submission as in like putting the book out on sub?
Actually, we can talk about both. So with your querying, how many agents did you initially query?
I want to say 6. Since grad school, I had an Excel sheet of the agents that I felt like, could represent my work well. And I'm a spreadsheet girl. So I had their names, representative authors, how many pages they want, if they represent multiple genres, links to like their publisher's marketplace, when they're opening for queries, etc. So I think I submitted to 6, or I queried 6, and then I got representation offers from 3. So maybe I did 7, because I feel like it was kind of uneven. But so I got representation offers from 3, and then I went with Jody. It was a rather quick experience, and I think that is because Jody read it so fast. And I was already in communication with another agent far before that. And so it maybe took a month. And that's not what I expected. I thought I'd be waiting 6 months. Everyone's querying experience is different. But I think because of Lit Up, and because Jody was like, put it at the top of the pile, or I'll put it at the top of the pile, I was able to then email other agents and say, hey, I just got an offer of representation, or, whatever. So that was a pretty quick experience. I didn't really know what to expect from that. And then with submission, being on sub, that also went pretty quickly, but it was a matter of, okay, when are we going to go out on sub? Because I finished my manuscript, like final touches, went through two rounds of edits with Jody and her assistant at the beginning of 2023. So I feel like I want to say by April or May, that had been finalized. Excuse me. But Jody was like, well, it's summertime, people are in and out of office. Let's think about this month, or let's think about this month. So we didn't go out on sub until September. And then I got my offer on October 3rd. And so with my experience at auction, I before there were offers even on the table, I was doing different Zoom calls with editors, kind of so they could understand my vibe, so I could understand their vibe, so we could talk about the book, and so I could really decipher, who I would want to work with if I feel like our visions align. And that was really fun. Lots of Zoom once again. So on each of my lunch breaks at work, I was like, hey, just to let y'all know, I'm going on lunch. I'll be back. And then we do a debrief call after each call. So that was really, I've heard of auction a lot, but I think different agents go about it differently, and different authors have different experiences. So it was a lot of fun. But then
how did she do it?
Yeah, she does it like that. So you take calls before you get any offers. Okay. And so I was like, oh, this is fun. But once you get offers, I was like, oh, at some point I have to make a decision, and it has to be, the right one. That's where it was hard for me. But I was back in my hometown in Indianapolis, so I invited all of my friends over. My mom and grandma were there, and we're literally, once again, I made an Excel sheet, and we're comparing the offers. It's giving like draft day. We have pizza, we're in our pajamas, and I'm, calling folks and I'm like, hey, how does this sound? How does this editor sound? What do you think about this? And so even on the day that the auction was supposed to be over, I hadn't made a decision. I was like, Jody, I have to sleep on it. I will know in the morning. I think I know where I'm leaning, but I will know in the morning. And she's like, okay, you have to give an answer in the morning. That's the whole point of auction. They need an answer quickly. So I ended up going with Tira and Ruta at Penguin Teen. And that's been it. It's so exciting to have an auction for my debut novel. Hopefully that continues to be the case, but if not, at least I had the experience.
And what made you choose Penguin Teen? What was it about them that stood out?
So I really wanted a Black editor. And so there were a good amount, frankly, there were a good amount of Black editors in the auction. But I wanted a Black editor, and I wanted someone who could see the, how the book centers on gentrification as well as all the other themes and elements. And Tierra said something that no one else had said. I can't remember what it was, but I think she was talking about the grief of losing a place. And I think no one else had put it that way. And I was just like, she gets it. And she also really identified with the protagonist. And so I think, when someone can really closely identify with a story and also closely identify with my vision on, but she hadn't edited a novel in verse, and I was excited for that to be, a challenge for both of us. So it was that, and of course the money. But I think, frankly, a lot of the deals were like almost neck and neck. So the money wasn't as big of a factor as it was that, I would have Tierra and I would have Ruta, who's kind of like a mentor to Tierra and who has been in the game for a long time. So I was like, ooh, I get a double whammy. And who would not choose that?
Now, did you have a lot of revisions with your editor once you got sold?
Yeah, we did 3 rounds of edits. And the first one was mostly plot based. So Tierra is great at finding plot holes and figuring out where things are not aligning. And then the last 2 were just any smaller plot holes and then the line edit. So we did go back again for the line edit because I am, like I said earlier, I want to look at every single line. And I think in poetry, if you're not doing that, you're doing it a disservice. So I was like, let's run it back one more time. I'm so sorry. And so that did slow us down, and now probably won't have galleys till the end of the year. But I wanted it to be perfect, or as close to perfect as it could be. So it did take a lot. Especially at the beginning, when my initial edits were supposed to be due at the beginning of the year, I think it was like March, I was quitting my job. I was like doing all these things. So I needed an extension. And then there were other times, I think, where I needed an extension or they needed an extension. And so it's really interesting to kind of figure out how everyone works. And so I hope this time I need less extensions. But now I know, now I kind of have my flow, I have my schedule, and I know when to write, how long to write, and what to say no to. I think when I was editing, I was trying to also do a lot of social things. And I was like, girl, you don't have time for this. So yeah, our process is pretty long, but I respect it.
Have you seen your book cover yet?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. I'm in love with it. I think it really strikes the balance of everything I wanted and everything PRH wanted. I'm in love with it. Like, I kind of just want to like get a shirt and just point at it and be like, look at my cover.
Awesome. Awesome. Have you been to any author events yet?
Not yet. I am going to be a +1 at the National Book Awards for with Leah Johnson, because she was one of the judges. We're really close friends. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my outfit together. I don't know what I'm gonna wear. Nobody's gonna know me. Nobody's gonna care, but I care. So, but other than that, I haven't. There aren't a lot of author events in Dallas, at least not authors that I know. They're typically white, and older, much older. So not a lot of events in Dallas, but I live in a suburb that's a little further from Dallas city center. So getting out to a book event where I have to beat rush hour traffic, I'm going to be late. So I just, it's hard. But yeah, no author events yet. I'm, hoping to, but I don't come out till June. So I'm hoping, at the beginning of 2025, I want to be ripping and running.
Love that. Love that. How about social media? Do you have any plans for like what you're going to do around your launch? Any cool ideas?
Yeah. In an ideal world, I want to have a skate party on top of my launch event.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of that, because of course a publisher is not paying for that. But I'm like, what day will my launch event be? I know I want it to be at Leah's bookstore at Loudmouth Books in Indianapolis, because the book is based in Indianapolis. So I'm hoping we can, do an event and then go to the skating rink. But I want it to be, I want my books to be there. I want a particular DJ, because I'm from Indianapolis, so I know who I want. But that's my ideal idea. That's my idea there. But as far as social media is concerned, I'm just gonna keep posting and doing the little trope trends. And at some point I have to make some reels pitching my book. So I guess when I get a galley and I can be like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to give the little elevator pitch. And I just want to keep connecting with people on social. I feel like, you think you've connected with so many people, and then you're like, wait, wow, yeah, no, I actually don't know this author who's posting. I actually, haven't been able to connect with 2025 debuts in the way that I want to. So I'm really just trying to like ramp that up, because there's so many good books coming out, and I want to talk about them. I think when you live in a place like Dallas, but also really anywhere, none of us live anywhere near each other. So
Mm-hmm.
it's different than like when I lived in New York and everybody lived in New York before the pandemic. That's not the case anymore. So I have to be so much more intentional about the ways I connect. I got to get in the Discord. I got to get in the email. I got to do this. I got to do that. But because I used to work in marketing for books, I made my own social calendar and like social media calendar that I'm trying to follow. So I just have to plan in that way, because I will forget to post. Like I'll post on the stories all the time, on Instagram stories all the time, but I will forget to post anywhere else. So I don't know. I kind of feel like this is the full-time job that everybody said it was. And it's a lot, but I do enjoy it.
Are you writing full time now?
Ish. I don't have a job. Well, that's not true. I don't have a full-time job. So I quit my job in March, and I didn't have anything until August of this year. So basically I write, and then I edit admissions essays for college, or for high school students who are headed to college, through a company called Empowerly. And then I just started, or I'm literally, the training that I'm doing after this is for 826 Dallas Project, which is almost they're like a chapter in development for 826 National. So I'll be teaching ninth graders creative writing things. So, but yeah, that's it. So those are like they're part-time, which I love that. Will I go back to a full-time job? I don't know. I enjoy kind of the scrappiness. But if I need the money, I will be going back to a full-time gig.
Awesome, awesome. Good to hear. Was there any piece of like technology or tool or anything that helped you, either that helped you in your marketing or it either helped you in your writing or your query process? Anything you suggest to new writers?
Yeah, so I finally started using Scrivener, and I think it's worth the $50. I think it was $50. Maybe it was more. I can't remember, but I think when I bought it, I was still a student. I think it's worth it, especially for a novel in verse, being able to label a scene and move it around. That works wonders because I used to, and because sometimes still do, print out every single page and then move it around physically. I don't have the printer paper for that. I don't have the ink for that. I mean, and back then I didn't even have a printer. So I would upload the document on like FedEx and then go pick up a $50, $60, $70 thing. Nobody has the money for that. So Scrivener can be your best friend, depending on how you write. Some people draft in Scrivener. I kind of do a little bit of both, drafting and revising in Scrivener. And then for my marketing, take advantage of the fact that you can schedule a post on Instagram. I will schedule a post at any time because you can just do it right from the, little posting schedule thing or the posting page. So take advantage of that. I also use Airtable to do my social calendar. I'm sure you could just use a Google Calendar, but I come from a corporate background and we used Airtable. We used all the project management tools. So I use that. I have a to-do list. I have a lot of things. But I think top recommendations, Scrivener and Airtable.
That's cool. I've never used either.
Yeah, I mean, they're worth a try. Scrivener has a trial. And the trial isn't like, it's 30 days, but it's not like 30 consecutive days. It's 30 days that you get on there and use it. Yeah, so I really liked that. And I was like, you know what? I use it enough that I should pay for it. Airtable is free. There's some features that aren't, but okay, then I just won't use them.
Love that. Love that. What are you working on now?
I'm working on my second novel. I don't want to say what it's about just yet because I'm so fresh in it, but I'm really just drafting and trying to figure out what the central conflict is, who this character is, what is her voice. But of course, there's a romance there, and it's very Black, and I'm very excited about that. They're headed to senior year of high school. It does include summer and band camp and a dance team and a drum line. So I'm really excited about it. But that's what I'm working on right now, and I'm trying to hurry up and finish it. At least the
Is
first.
this one in verse too?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm always ordering more novels in verse, trying to read them and figure out what kind of tone everyone else is striking and what I want to do on my page.
Yep. So what's the best piece of writing advice you've ever heard?
Oh, let's see. I really have to think about that. I think the best piece of writing advice I've ever heard is to not compare your writing to others. And that sounds so boring, but you will miss out on your own voice by comparing yourself so closely to others. It's okay to intimately engage with other people's work and figure out what they're doing that makes their work so evocative or intriguing, but you need to do the same for your own work. You need to read your own work closely and figure out what makes your voice your voice. Because I think when I was writing Under the Neon Lights, especially as we were revising, I was like, oh, but it doesn't sound like the Poet X, but it doesn't sound like blah, blah, blah. And on one hand, that's important because if I'm writing a novel in verse and it's not striking what a novel in verse should strike, then I do need to look at that again. But on the other hand, it might not sound like those because that's just not my poetic voice, or that's not the voice of my protagonist. So my editors and I had a conversation about that. And they basically had to say, listen, your voice is great. Your writing is good. Like, lean into that. So I think that is the best piece of advice. We can compare ourselves to others all day, but we are all writers for a reason, because we have different stories to tell. We have different voices. And that is what makes every genre beautiful. So yeah, hard to apply, but very important.
Love that. Love that. What do you think you did right that helped you break into the industry?
Mm. Like, in general, anybody?
Hmm.
What's that? Can you rephrase the question?
Okay. I'll just give you a different question. I was asking what you thought you did right that helped you make it, what do you think, or is there anything that you wish you would have done differently?
Okay. But I think I did right. Back in my day. Before now, or before Elon Musk, Twitter was a different place. And I think what I did right had less to do with what I was right. Well, no, that's not true. I think what I did right was talking about my work all the time. On social media, but specifically on Twitter, because like I would write these essays just because I felt a way about something literary, and so I wrote it. Or I had poems and I submitted them to be published, and I posted about them, and so it allowed me to meet people digitally, and have these conversations about my work and think about my work in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise. But it also allowed agents to see me, or editors of a journal to be like, hey, we'd love if you have a story about this. Do you want to teach about this? And that really opened me up to the possibilities of what a writing life could look like. What I think I could have done differently, probably plenty of things. Let's see. I think I mean, I could still do this now, but I think even though I know the literary world is not just in New York, everywhere I move, because I do move often, everywhere I move, I'm like, oh, but it's not like New York. Oh, but we don't have blah, blah, blah. And I think what I could do differently is just create those spaces, or at least help someone else create those spaces. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Just create community where I feel like there is a need, because often I'm complaining about the lack instead of, thinking about how I can contribute. And I feel like that has a lot to do with being burnt out. I feel like I spent a lot of energy at the jobs I was working at, and that's what you do. You work there full time. That's what you do. But so when I get off of work, I don't want to talk to anybody else that I don't already know. I don't want to create a thing. I don't want to have to work even more. But I think with, I guess, writing part-time-ish and then doing other things part-time, I have a more free schedule, so I can hopefully do what it is that I'm looking for. That was a long way to say I just have not created community in the ways that I've wanted to.
You will.
Thank you.
Is there anything you want to say in closing that we haven't covered? Anything that you want to share? Any advice? Anything at all?
I think no matter what, and I guess this is a advice for debuts thing. No matter what, write the story that you care about. I know that we're always thinking about what's going to sell in the market and what's going to do well and what readers want to read. And while that is all important, you have to write what you want to write. Because at the end of the day, especially for Black writers, you got to work a lot harder anyway. So you might as well write what you want to write and be happy with what you've produced, and really feel deeply about the story. I think publishing is challenging no matter what, and it's all a matter of luck, less about merit and more of a matter of luck. So use your luck to write the stories you want to, and not what you think the demand is for a Black writer.
Love that. Love that. Where can readers connect with you?
You can connect with me on Twitter or X at Ari Writes. That's ARRI Writes. I'm also Ari Writes on Instagram and Threads. And then my website is ariwrites.com. So, if somebody emailed me the other day through my contact form and they were like, hey, you did this interview with Vinson Cunningham. I interviewed him about being a cultural critic. And they're like, yeah, I loved it. And so we've been emailing.
How cool.
Yeah. So that is where you can find me. I'm mostly on Instagram.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I tried to get you out of here when I said I would.
Yes. Yes. And I'm about to grab a little snack and be ready for my training. So,
all right. You have a great day, sweetie. Thank you again.
You too. Bye.
That wraps up today's Craft Chat Chronicles with JD Mayo. Thanks for joining us. If you liked the episode, please comment, subscribe, and share. For show notes, writing workshops, and tips, head to jdmayo.com. That's jdmayo.com. While you're there, join JD's mailing list for updates, giveaways, and more.
Are you struggling to keep your writing organized? Trust me, I've been there. I want to introduce you to Scrivener, the ultimate program for all writers. You can outline, draft, and even edit all in one place. Whether it's your next novel, screenplay, or even thesis, Scrivener helps you stay focused and finish strong. Scrivener adapts to your workflow. From your first draft to the final edit, it's a writer's secret weapon. Click on the link below and get started on your Scrivener writing journey today.